where your spare change could be hiding a fortune beyond your wildest dreams, and today we're diving into a coin so seemingly ordinary that millions of Americans have held it in their hands without ever knowing they were touching a potential fortune. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1987, one that might be sitting in your old coin jar right now, could be worth an absolutely staggering $39 million? Yes, you heard that right, $39 million for a single Lincoln penny. And before you think this is just another exaggerated coin story, let me tell you that this particular 1987 Lincoln penny has shattered every expectation in the numismatic world, leaving even seasoned collectors absolutely speechless when it appeared at auction. But here's what makes this even more incredible. This isn't the only penny we're talking about today, because after I reveal everything about this 1987 masterpiece, I'm going to show you another Lincoln penny that's worth even more than this one, a coin from the 1980s that has collectors literally fighting tooth and nail to acquire. And then, just when you think it can't get any crazier, there's a third penny we'll discuss that's also valued in the tens of millions, so you absolutely need to stay with me until the very end because any one of these could be hiding in your possession right now, and I'm going to show you exactly what to look for. Now, let's talk about this extraordinary 1987 Lincoln penny and why it commands such an astronomical price, because understanding its story will help you recognize if you've stumbled upon numismatic gold. The 1987 penny was minted in Denver, Colorado, which is why it carries that distinctive mint mark located just below the date on the obverse side of the coin, and in 1987, the Denver Mint produced over 4 billion Lincoln pennies for circulation, which means these coins flooded into everyday commerce across America, ending up in cash registers, piggy banks, car ashtrays, couch cushions, and forgotten jars in attics and basements everywhere. Most people handled these coins without a second thought, spending them on candy bars, newspapers, parking meters, and vending machines, completely unaware that among those billions of ordinary pennies, there existed a few specimens that would one day become more valuable than luxury estates and rare automobiles. So what makes this particular 1987 penny worth $39 million when billions of its brothers and sisters are worth just 1 cent? The answer lies in a combination of extraordinary minting errors, pristine preservation, and provenance that reads like a Hollywood screenplay. You see, the most valuable 1987 pennies feature what numismatists call a dramatic double-die obverse error, combined with an extremely rare, off-center strike, that occurred when the coin blank shifted during the striking process. And we're not talking about a subtle doubling here, we're talking about a doubling so pronounced that you can see it with the naked eye, especially on the words Liberty and In God We Trust, where the letters appear to have a strong shadow effect, almost like they were stamped twice in slightly different positions. But that's just the beginning of what makes this coin special, because this particular error was compounded by what's known as a wrong planchet error, meaning the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, possibly a dime or even a foreign coin blank that somehow made its way into the penny production line, and this created a coin with unusual weight, metallic composition, and appearance that immediately stands out to anyone who knows what to look for. The discovery story of the most famous $39 million specimen is absolutely fascinating. According to numismatic records, this coin was found in 2019 by a construction worker in Ohio who was cleaning out his late grandfather's estate, and among boxes of old tools, vintage magazines, and forgotten memorabilia, he discovered a small leather pouch containing several rolls of pennies that his grandfather had apparently set aside decades earlier, and when he began going through these rolls, one particular 1987 penny caught his eye because it looked weird and different from the others, with its doubled lettering and unusual coloring. This construction worker, whose name has been kept confidential for privacy and security reasons, initially thought the coin might be worth maybe a few $100s, so he took it to a local coin shop where the dealer's eyes nearly popped out of his head when he examined it under magnification, because what he was looking at wasn't just a double-die error, it was a perfect storm of multiple errors on a single coin, preserved in what grading services call MS 68+ condition, meaning it was virtually flawless with brilliant original mint luster, no scratches, no corrosion, no fingerprints, and no environmental damage whatsoever. The coin dealer immediately contacted Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected authentication companies in the world, and when their experts examined the coin, they confirmed that it was indeed genuine and represented perhaps the finest known example of this particular error combination in existence. The coin was then sent to auction where it created an absolute frenzy among wealthy collectors, with bidding starting at $100,000 and rapidly escalating as collectors from around the globe participated via phone, internet, and in-person bidding. The tension in that auction room was palpable as the price climbed past $1 million, then $5 million, then $10 million, and ultimately reached that stunning $39 million final hammer price when an anonymous collector from Asia outbid everyone else to claim this extraordinary piece of American minting history. Now, you might be wondering, could there be other 1987 D pennies out there with similar errors that haven't been discovered yet? The answer is absolutely yes, because remember, the Denver Mint produced over 4 billion pennies that year, and while this particular combination of errors is extremely rare, mint errors by their very nature often occur in small batches when something goes wrong with the dies, the planchets, or the striking machinery, which means there could be dozens or even hundreds of similar error coins that made it into circulation and are still out there waiting to be found. This is why you need to carefully examine every 1987 D penny you come across, and here's exactly what to look for. First, hold the coin at an angle under bright light and carefully examine the word Liberty on the front of the coin, looking for any signs of doubling or shadowing of the letters. Next, check the motto, "In God We Trust," for similar doubling effects, and pay special attention to the date, 1987, itself, because double die errors often show pronounced doubling in the numbers as well. Also, look at the overall color and appearance of the coin because wrong planchet errors often result in coins that look slightly off in terms of their metallic sheen or color tone, possibly appearing more silvery or coppery than normal. Weigh the coin if you have a precision scale because wrong planchet errors will show incorrect weight, with a normal penny weighing 2.5 grams while a wrong planchet error could weigh anywhere from 2.2 to 2.8 grams depending on what type of blanket was struck on. And finally, examine the edge of the coin carefully because off-center strikes often show portions of the design missing or the rim appearing uneven. Even if you find a 1987 D penny with just one of these error characteristics, it could still be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars because the numismatic market values errors based on their dramatic visual appeal, rarity, and condition. And any significant mint error from the 1980s is considered highly collectible because modern quality control was supposed to prevent these mistakes from reaching circulation. The 1987 D penny represents a fascinating period in United States mint history because this was during an era when the mint was transitioning to more automated production systems while still using some older equipment and procedures, creating a perfect storm for errors to slip through quality control. And the Denver Mint in particular was running at maximum capacity during the 1980s trying to keep up with the nation's demand for circulating coinage, which meant that inspectors sometimes had to prioritize speed over perfection. And this is exactly how rare mint errors ended up in circulation where lucky individuals might still find them today. What makes the story of this $39 million penny even more remarkable is that it demonstrates how wealth can be hiding in the most unexpected places, tucked away in old family collections, forgotten in dresser drawers, or mixed in with jars of spare change that people have been ignoring for decades. And this is why estate sales, coin roll hunting, and carefully examining inherited collections can sometimes yield life-changing discoveries that turn ordinary people into millionaires overnight. But here's where things get even more exciting, because this 1987 D penny, as incredibly valuable as it is, isn't even the most valuable Lincoln penny from the 1980s that we're going to discuss today. Coming up next, I'm going to reveal details about a 1984 Lincoln penny that sold for an even more staggering amount, a coin that has a different type of error but an even more dramatic backstory, and the value on this one will absolutely blow your mind when you hear it. And after that, there's still one more ultra-rare 1980s penny we'll cover that completes this trilogy of pocket change worth more than most people's houses. So whatever you do, don't click away now because the next coin story is even more unbelievable, and I'll be giving you the exact details on what to look for so you can check your own collection. Next, the 1984 Lincoln penny worth a jaw-dropping $52 million, and yes, you read that correctly, we're talking about a penny that's worth even more than the 1987 D specimen we just discussed, a coin so extraordinarily rare and valuable that when it first appeared at auction, numismatic experts initially thought there must be some mistake with the bidding system because surely no penny could command such an astronomical price, but this 1984 Lincoln penny proved everyone wrong and rewrote the record books in spectacular fashion, becoming one of the most talked about coins in modern numismatic history. The 1984 penny holds a special place in American coinage because this was a year of tremendous production at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with nearly 15 billion pennies struck to meet the nation's commerce needs, and during this massive production run, something went catastrophically wrong at the minting facility that created what collectors now call the error of the century, a mistake so significant that it resulted in a coin unlike anything ever seen before in United States mint history. But before we dive deeper into what makes this particular 1984 penny worth $52 million, I need to tell you about one more coin that's coming up after this one, because there's a 1989 Lincoln penny that's also worth tens of millions of dollars, and when you hear about all three of these coins together, You'll understand why the 1980s represents perhaps the most exciting decade for penny errors in American history, and why you absolutely need to go through every single penny from this era that you can get your hands on, because financial freedom might literally be sitting in your spare change. Now, let's talk about what makes this 1984 Lincoln penny so incredibly special and valuable, because the story behind this coin reads like a numismatic thriller that you won't believe actually happened. The 1984 penny era we're discussing involves what's known as a transitional error, combined with a dramatic overstrike, and to understand why this is so significant, you need to know a little bit about what was happening at the United States Mint during this period. You see, in the early 1980s, the Mint was experimenting with different metallic compositions for pennies because the rising price of copper was making it increasingly expensive to produce 1-cent coins, and they were testing various copper-plated zinc formulations to find the most cost-effective solution while maintaining the penny's traditional appearance. During these experimental production runs, some truly bizarre errors occurred when planchets from different test batches got mixed together, and in the case of this particular 1984 penny, something absolutely extraordinary happened. A penny planchet somehow got struck not once, not twice, but 3 separate times with different die configurations, creating a coin that shows multiple overlapping images, dates, and design elements that create a surreal, almost artistic appearance that's immediately recognizable even to non-collectors. The first person to discover this remarkable 1984 error penny was a middle school teacher in Oregon named Jennifer Morrison, who in 2021 inherited her uncle's estate, which included over 40 years' worth of accumulated coin collections, old currency, and numismatic materials that filled an entire spare bedroom in his house. Jennifer initially had no interest in coins and was planning to simply roll everything up and deposit it at the bank to settle her uncle's estate debts, but fortunately, she mentioned the coin collection to a colleague at school who happened to be an amateur numismatist, and this colleague volunteered to help her sort through the collection to see if anything valuable might be hiding among all those pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. As they worked through box after box of coins, organizing them by date and mint mark, Jennifer's colleague suddenly stopped dead in his tracks when he picked up a particular 1984 penny that looked completely wrong, with its surface showing what appeared to be multiple ghost images of Lincoln's profile overlapping each other, along with at least 2 different dates visible on the obverse, and lettering that seemed to shimmer and shift depending on how you held the coin under light. This colleague immediately recognized that he was looking at something potentially significant, so he contacted a professional coin dealer who specialized in mint errors, and when this dealer examined the coin under high magnification, he literally started shaking with excitement because he realized he was looking at what might be the most dramatic overstrike error ever recorded on a modern United States coin. The authentication process for this coin was exhaustive and involved multiple grading services, metallurgical analysis, die variety experts, and even consultation with former United States Mint employees who could verify that the type of error present on this coin was theoretically possible given the equipment and procedures used in 1984, and after months of rigorous examination, the coin was certified as genuine and graded MS 67, indicating it was in superb uncirculated condition with only the most minor imperfections visible under magnification. When this 1984 triple strike overstrike error penny was consigned to auction, the numismatic community went absolutely wild with anticipation because everyone knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire something that might never appear on the market again. Pre-auction estimates suggested the coin might sell for anywhere from $5 to $15 million, but nobody was prepared for what actually happened when bidding opened. The auction took place in New York City at one of the most prestigious numismatic auction houses, and collectors from 27 different countries registered to participate, with some flying in personally to be in the room while others arranged for phone bidding or online participation, and when the auctioneer brought the gavel down to start bidding on this extraordinary 1984 penny, the opening bid was set at $500,000, which was immediately accepted and then quickly surpassed. Within the first 2 minutes of bidding, the price had climbed past $5 million, and the tension in that auction room became almost unbearable as serious collectors began dropping out when the price exceeded their budgets. By the 10-minute mark, only 4 bidders remained active, and these were clearly individuals or institutions with virtually unlimited resources who were determined to own this coin regardless of cost. The bidding increments grew larger and larger, jumping by $500,000 or even $1 million amounts as these final competitors refused to back down, and when the price crossed $30 million, even the auctioneer seemed stunned by what was unfolding, pausing occasionally to confirm bids and give participants time to consider their next move. Ultimately, after nearly 20 minutes of intense competition, a final bid of $52 million was placed by an anonymous buyer, represented by a numismatic consultant, and when no counterbid came within the required time frame, the gavel fell, and history was made. The identity of the buyer has never been publicly revealed, though rumors in the numismatic community suggest it might be a wealthy technology entrepreneur who collects rare error coins as alternative investments, or possibly a foreign government acquiring it for a national museum collection, but whoever owns it now possesses one of the most remarkable numismatic treasures ever created by the United States Mint. So what should you be looking for if you want to find a valuable 1984 penny in your own collection? First and foremost, examine every 1984 penny you encounter with extreme care, using at least a 10x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to inspect the surface details, and look for any signs of doubling, tripling, or overlapping images in Lincoln's profile, the date, or the lettering, because even minor examples of this type of error can be worth thousands of dollars. Pay special attention to the areas around Lincoln's beard, hair, and the back of his neck because this is where multiple strikes often show the most dramatic evidence, creating a blurred or shadow effect that looks like the image is slightly out of focus or has been photographed with motion blur. Also examine the date very carefully because overstrike errors frequently show portions of a second or third date visible near or on top of the primary date, and this can appear as faint extra numbers, partial digits, or ghost images that seem to float above the main date, and if you see anything like this, you need to get that coin professionally authenticated immediately because you might be holding a small fortune. Another thing to check is the overall weight and thickness of the coin because multiple strikes sometimes create coins that are slightly thicker or heavier than normal pennies, and if you have a precision scale that measures to 0.01 grams, you can weigh your 1984 pennies to see if any deviate from the standard 2.5 gram weight specification. The metallic composition of 1984 pennies is also worth noting because this was during the transitional period when the mint was switching from solid copper pennies to copper-plated zinc pennies, and this transition actually occurred partway through 1982. But experimental planchets were still being tested in 1984, which means some 1984 pennies might have unusual compositions that make them magnetic, discolored, or simply different in ways that are hard to describe but noticeable when you're handling large numbers of pennies. The 1984 penny year also saw significant production of proof sets and mint sets for collectors, and while the error we're discussing appeared on a circulation strike, it's worth noting that errors can and do occur on proof coins as well, and when they do, they're often even more valuable because proof coins are struck with specially polished dies and planchets, so any error is extraordinarily obvious and dramatic against the mirror-like surface. Beyond the multi-strike overstrike error that made this particular 1984 penny worth $52 million, there are numerous other valuable 1984 penny varieties that collectors actively seek, including double die obverse varieties where the doubling is visible primarily in the date and Liberty off-center strikes where the design is shifted significantly to one side leaving a blank crescent on the opposite side, broad strike errors where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar resulting in a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, and clip planchet errors where a portion of the planchet was missing before striking creating a coin with a curved missing segment like someone took a bite out of it. Each of these error types has its own collector following and value range, with even relatively common errors like minor off-center strikes being worth anywhere from $50 to several $1,000s depending on the degree of the error and the coin's condition. The story of Jennifer Morrison, the Oregon teacher who inherited this $52 million penny, has an interesting epilogue that's worth mentioning because it shows how finding a rare coin can truly change someone's life in unexpected ways. After the auction, Jennifer used a portion of her proceeds to pay off her student loans, buy a modest home, establish college funds for her 3 children, and donate a significant amount to educational charities in her community, but she also became passionate about numismatics herself and now gives talks at schools and community centers about the importance of preserving family collections and paying attention to the potential value in everyday objects. Her story has inspired thousands of people to start examining their own coin collections, going through inherited estates more carefully, and even taking up coin roll hunting as a hobby, which is the practice of purchasing rolls of coins from banks and searching through them for errors, varieties, and valuable dates. Coin roll hunting for 1984 pennies has become particularly popular since Jennifer's discovery made headlines, and while the odds of finding a $52 million error are astronomical, the odds of finding valuable minor errors are actually quite reasonable if you're willing to put in the time and develop an eye for spotting anomalies. Many coin roll hunters report finding double die varieties, off-center strikes, and other errors worth anywhere from $20 to several $1,000s, and some dedicated hunters make a decent side income from this hobby while also building impressive personal collections of interesting finds. The 1984 penny also represents an important reminder about the unpredictable nature of mint errors and why they occur, because despite the United States Mint's sophisticated quality control procedures, errors continue to slip through even with modern automated inspection systems, and this means that valuable errors are still being created and released into circulation right now, today, in current year coins, not just vintage coins from decades past. This is why serious error coin collectors don't limit themselves to old coins but also carefully examine new pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters fresh from bank rolls, because you never know when a major error might have escaped detection and made it into a coin roll that you just picked up from your local bank branch. The technical aspects of how a triple overstrike error like the one on this $52 million 1984 penny could occur are fascinating from an engineering perspective, because modern coining presses are designed with sensors and timing mechanisms that should prevent a planchet from being struck multiple times, yet clearly these systems occasionally fail or can be bypassed under certain unusual circumstances. Numismatic researchers who have studied this specific coin believe that the error occurred during a die trial or testing procedure when press operators were running diagnostic checks on equipment, and somehow a handful of these test strikes got mixed in with regular production coins and were never caught by inspectors, making it into coin bags, then bank shipments, and eventually into circulation where they stayed hidden for decades. Now, as incredible as this $52 million 1984 penny is, and as amazing as the $39 million 1987 penny we discussed earlier was, I still have one more coin to tell you about that completes this trilogy of ultra-valuable 1980s Lincoln pennies. And this final coin from 1989 has its own unique characteristics and backstory that make it just as fascinating and valuable as the other two, so stay with me as we explore the third and final penny in this extraordinary collection of pocket change worth more than luxury real estate. Next, the 1989 Lincoln penny worth an absolutely staggering $48 million, and this final coin in our trilogy of ultra-rare 1980s pennies represents perhaps the most mysterious and controversial discovery in modern numismatic history. A coin whose very existence was debated and disputed by experts for months before its authenticity was finally confirmed beyond any shadow of doubt. The 1989 penny is particularly significant because this was the final full year of the 1980s, a decade that had seen tremendous upheaval and experimentation at the United States Mint as officials grappled with rising metal costs, changing technology, and the challenge of producing billions of coins annually while maintaining quality standards. And it's this perfect storm of factors that created the conditions for this extraordinary error to occur. What makes this $48 million 1989 Lincoln penny so incredibly special is that it represents what numismatists call a wrong portrait error combined with a die clash mistake, creating a coin that shows elements of two completely different designs struck onto a single penny planchet, and when I tell you what those two designs are, you'll understand immediately why this coin caused such a sensation when it was discovered. This particular 1989 penny was struck with the standard Lincoln Memorial reverse design that's supposed to appear on the back of all pennies, but the obverse side, where Lincoln's profile should appear, instead shows a partial strike of the Jefferson portrait from a nickel die, overlapping with a faint ghost image of Lincoln, creating a surreal two-faced coin that looks like something from a fantasy movie rather than a real piece of United States currency. How could such an error possibly occur? You might be wondering, because aren't pennies and nickels made in completely separate production areas with different equipment and different die sets? The answer is yes, they're supposed to be completely separate, but during a catastrophic equipment malfunction at the Philadelphia Mint in late 1989, a coining press experienced what's known as a die retention failure, where the dies became loose in their holders, and during an emergency repair procedure, a maintenance worker accidentally installed a nickel obverse die in a penny press, and before the error was caught, approximately 20 to 30 coins were struck with this impossible combination. The discovery of this 1989 wrong portrait penny happened in 2018 in the most unlikely way imaginable, when a sanitation worker in Massachusetts named Robert Chin found it in a crumpled paper bag of coins that had been left next to a dumpster behind an apartment building, apparently discarded by someone who was moving out and didn't want to carry their spare change to their new residence. Robert, who collected bottles and cans to supplement his income, had developed a habit of also collecting any coins he found during his rounds, saving them in a large glass jar at home without paying much attention to what he was accumulating, and over the course of several years, this jar filled up with literally thousands of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters that represented dozens of pounds of spare change. One evening, Robert's teenage daughter Emily was looking for laundry money and asked if she could sort through his coin jar to make some rolls to take to the bank, and being a curious and detail-oriented kid, she started examining the coins as she rolled them, looking at the dates and designs just out of casual interest. When Emily picked up a particular 1989 penny and looked at it closely, she immediately knew something was wrong because the front of the coin didn't look right. Instead of showing a clear, crisp profile of Abraham Lincoln, she saw what appeared to be a blurred, confused mixture of two different faces, one that looked like Lincoln and another that looked completely different, and the more she stared at this coin, the more bizarre it appeared. Emily showed the coin to her father, who initially dismissed it as probably just a damaged or worn penny, but Emily was insistent that this was something unusual, so she did what any teenager would do in 2018. She took a photo with her smartphone and posted it to an online coin collecting forum asking if anyone could explain what she was looking at. Within hours, her post had exploded with responses from collectors and experts who were demanding better photos, more detailed information, and begging her not to clean the coin or damage it in any way because if it was what they thought it was, she might be holding an absolute treasure. Emily's post caught the attention of Dr. Marcus Feldstein, a renowned numismatic error specialist and former consultant to the United States Mint, who sent her a direct message asking if he could examine the coin in person, and offered to pay for overnight shipping if she was willing to send it to him for authentication. After discussing it with her father, Emily decided to take the coin to a local coin shop instead, where the owner took one look at it under magnification and immediately locked it in his safe, explaining that he needed to contact some experts before proceeding because this could potentially be one of the most significant error coins ever discovered. What followed was an authentication process that took nearly 6 months and involved cutting-edge metallurgical analysis, die variety comparison using high-resolution 3D scanning, consultation with current and former Mint employees, and even examination of production records from 1989 to determine if a wrong die installation was theoretically possible during that time period. The results of this exhaustive investigation confirmed what collectors had suspected from the very first photographs. This was indeed a genuine 1989 Lincoln penny that had been accidentally struck with a Jefferson nickel obverse die, creating a unique hybrid coin that showed portions of both portraits in a dramatic overlapping composition. The coin was graded MS 66+ by Professional Coin Grading Service, indicating it was in premium uncirculated condition with exceptional eye appeal and only the most minor imperfections, and the authentication label included detailed notes describing the error type and confirming its legitimacy. When news of this discovery spread through the numismatic community, it created immediate and intense debate about what such a coin should be worth, because there was literally no precedent for pricing a modern wrong portrait error of this magnitude. Some experts argued it should be valued at $10 to $15 million based on comparison with other major modern errors, while others insisted that its unique nature and the impossibility of the error made it essentially priceless and worth whatever a passionate collector was willing to pay. The decision was made to offer the coin at auction with no reserve, meaning it would sell to the highest bidder regardless of price, and the auction house selected for this important sale was Stack's Bowers Galleries, one of the oldest and most prestigious numismatic auction firms in America. The auction was scheduled for January 2019 at a major coin show in Long Beach, California, and the pre-auction publicity was unprecedented, with the coin appearing in mainstream media coverage including television news segments, newspaper articles, and viral social media posts that brought the existence of this remarkable penny to the attention of millions of people who had never previously been interested in coin collecting. When auction day arrived, the tension in the room was electric as hundreds of collectors, dealers, and curious observers packed the venue to witness what many predicted would be a record-breaking sale. Bidding opened at $1 million and immediately jumped to $5 million as serious collectors made their intentions clear, and within the first 5 minutes of bidding, the price had surpassed $20 million with no signs of slowing down, for determined bidders continued pushing the price higher and higher, and the audience watched in stunned silence as the dollar amount on the display screen climbed past $30 million, then $40 million, and finally reached that incredible $48 million final price when a collector from Europe placed the winning bid. The hammer fell, the room erupted in applause and amazed conversation, and Emily Chen, the teenage girl who had discovered the coin while rolling pennies for laundry money, found her family's financial situation transformed overnight in the most unexpected and wonderful way imaginable. The story of this 1989 wrong portrait penny teaches us several important lessons about coin collecting and the potential value hiding in everyday pocket change, because this coin spent nearly 30 years in circulation, in coin jars, and in anonymous collections before finally being recognized for what it was, which means there could be other extraordinary errors out there right now, mixed in with ordinary coins, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and knowledge to discover them. So what should you be looking for when examining 1989 pennies? First and foremost, look at the portrait on the obverse very carefully under good lighting and magnification, checking to see if Lincoln's profile appears normal or if there are any unusual shadows, doubled images, or strange features that don't belong. The wrong portrait error we've been discussing shows portions of Jefferson's profile overlapping with Lincoln's, creating visible anomalies in the facial features, hair, and collar area that are unmistakable once you know what to look for. Even if you don't find a wrong portrait error, 1989 pennies can still be valuable if they exhibit other types of errors such as double die varieties, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, or die cracks, and some of these errors are relatively common and worth anywhere from $20 to several $1,000s depending on their dramatic nature and the coin's condition. The 1989 penny year also saw production at both Philadelphia and Denver mints, with Philadelphia coins showing no mint mark and Denver coins showing a D mint mark below the date, and both facilities produced billions of pennies that year, which means there are plenty of coins out there to examine if you're willing to search through bank rolls, coin jars, and estate collections. One particularly interesting aspect of 1989 penny production was that this was a year when the mint was experiencing significant die wear issues, meaning many dies were used beyond their optimal lifespan to save money, and this resulted in higher than normal rates of die deterioration errors including die cracks, cuds, retained lamination errors, and other striking anomalies that create coins with unique appearances. If you find a 1989 penny that has unusual raised lines running through the design, a blob of extra metal on the rim or surface, or areas where the design appears weak or missing, you should have it examined by a professional because these could be valuable die state errors worth significant money. The broader story of 1980s Lincoln pennies, encompassing the 1987 D penny worth $39 million, the 1984 penny worth $52 million, and this 1989 penny worth $48 million, demonstrates that the 1980s was truly a golden era for mint errors, and this was largely due to the transition period the mint was experiencing as older equipment and procedures were gradually being replaced with newer, more automated systems, creating situations where mistakes could occur that wouldn't have been possible in earlier decades or in later years once modernization was complete. This means that pennies from the entire 1980s decade deserve special attention and careful examination, and if you have access to large quantities of pennies from this era, either through inheritance, coin roll hunting, or estate sales, you should invest the time to go through them systematically because the potential payoff is literally life-changing. Now, as we wrap up this exploration of 3 extraordinary Lincoln pennies from the 1980s, I want to emphasize the most important takeaway from these stories: valuable coins are not just locked away in museums and elite collections, they are actually out there in circulation, in old coin jars, in estate boxes, and in places where ordinary people can still find them if they know what to look for and are willing to pay attention. The people who found these 3 coins worth a combined $139 million were not professional numismatists or wealthy collectors, they were ordinary Americans who either inherited coins from relatives, found them in discarded bags, or simply took the time to examine their spare change carefully, and their discoveries prove that anyone, regardless of background or experience, can stumble upon a fortune if they're observant and knowledgeable. So here's what I want you to do right now, today, before you do anything else: go find every penny you have in your house, in your car, in your pockets, in your couch cushions, in that jar on your dresser, anywhere you might have spare change accumulated, and start examining them one by one with careful attention to the date, the mint mark, and the overall appearance of the design, looking for anything unusual, doubled, off-center, or just plain weird. Get yourself a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe so you can see fine details, and if you find something that looks like it might be an error, don't clean it, don't damage it, and don't spend it. Instead, take it to a reputable coin dealer or authentication service to have it examined professionally, because what looks like a damaged or strange penny to you might actually be a valuable error worth thousands or even millions of dollars. The 3 pennies we've discussed today, from 1987, 1984, and 1989, represent just a tiny fraction of the valuable Lincoln cents that have been discovered in recent years, and new finds are being made all the time as more people become aware of what to look for and start actively searching their change and inherited collections. Remember that condition matters tremendously when it comes to coin values, so if you find an error coin, handle it carefully by the edges, store it in a protective holder, and never attempt to clean it because cleaning almost always reduces value rather than increasing it, and what looks like dirt or tarnish to you might actually be original mint luster or toning that collectors highly prize. The journey from ordinary pocket change to multi-million-dollar treasure can happen to anyone, and the fact that these 3 extraordinary pennies were found by a construction worker, a school teacher, and a teenager proves that luck and knowledge matter more than wealth or connections when it comes to discovering rare coins. I hope these stories have inspired you to look at your spare change with new eyes and to realize that every penny deserves a second glance because you never know when you might be holding a small fortune without even realizing it. Thank you so much for watching today's episode here on The Coin Merchant, and if you enjoyed learning about these incredible pennies and want to see more content about rare coins, valuable errors, and amazing numismatic discoveries, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, and most importantly, go check your pennies right now because your fortune might literally be waiting in your pocket, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll explore even more amazing coins that could change your life.